Greetings, this is Vane and welcome back to Let's Play Elder Scrolls Arena! Okay. We're going to finish off exploring this level. We'll get the... there's no doubt that we'll get this done in this episode. And we'll start exploring the second level. Like I said, I have no idea if there's ever more than 2 of these levels in a dungeon. In a random dungeon, that is. I can't see any reason why there wouldn't be, other than randomness and artificial limitations put on by the programmers. For memory reasons, I guess. I mean, I'm pretty sure if you're interested, someone should have the maps to. I know there's for the wilderness. Someone's mapped out all the different modules. You might find someone's done the same with the dungeon modules. If you're interested, possibly with annotations of where likely loot spawns are. Okay, so we're here. Not too hard to get there from here, although I do have to go through at least 1, possibly 2, depending on how I do it. Okay, so I think if I head over to here and rest, I can refill my stamina to get up here. Yeah, sounds like a plan. I'm sorry, did I dare mention the word rest? We're not going that way, are we? No, we're going round. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so it's not strictly in the corner, but it should be enough to narrow down. And we're getting counters, it should narrow it down a bit for us. So, yeah. We're going to rest here. Let's have a look, because I've probably got more stamina than I think I have. Yeah, I got 25. To be honest, enemies nearby. Let's see, where are they? There's you. Let's come go kill some. I mean, you could just simply go outside and rest. How long do you want to rest? Rest forever. Just go out and camp. And as the encounters come up and interrupt you, you just kill them. Perfectly valid way of gaining experience. Nothing wrong with that. Okay. I think that'll do. That's refreshed enough of our stamina, I think. Let's get back out of here. Okay. I missed it, going around in circles. This looks familiar. Well, duh. That's a good sign. As is that. So, yeah. I mean, sometimes I look at these games and think, you know, how great they could be, or how great they would be if they'd actually been, or if they came out now, you know, modern graphics, out on Steam for DLC. So you can, with some modding, you know. See, well, we don't need you. No, okay. I ain't going anywhere without me loot, I can tell you that much. So we don't need you. Don't need you. Don't need you. You're broken, so I can drop you. And I'll drop you, yep. I suppose I could repair the items. I think that's... To be honest, they're not the best items. They're useful, but they're not the best. You never know. We might find some more. Let's have a look in here first. Come out the wall then. Don't know why a troll would have plank gauntlets, so I'll take those. I've said before how useful these random dungeons can be for a D&D game. Well, any role-playing game really. You need a maze or a dungeon or a cavern system, and let's be honest, most games do at some point. Originally, the earliest versions of D&D were literally. There's a reason it's called Dungeons and Dragons. May seem a bit passé now, but the thing about dungeons, because why is there so many dungeons? Is because dungeons are, well, they're safe, isolated environments, basically. Yeah, literally, they're literally venues that you can go to go and kill monsters. They're differentiated being apart from civilization, so you're not worrying about killing innocent people. You can use all your flashy magic spells in dungeons, however you wish. Can experience all sorts of traps and environments and stuff that's isolated from the rest of the world. So in terms of gameplay, dungeons are ideal, because in the end what happens in a dungeon stays in a dungeon, typically. Which is why you don't need to worry about things like morality and, I mean, sure, you're literally invading somebody's stronghold or somebody's home lair to steal their treasure, which is essentially an advanced version of breaking and entering. With aggravated assault, if not murder, but still, that's the point. It's the dungeon. You do that stuff in the dungeon. you can, rather than doing that in the town. Although, quite interestingly, because with this game, you can actually do that in the towns, because at night they're full of monsters. You still get the odd by a villager, so you can't indiscriminately kill everyone, but you can wander among the buildings and kill monsters and in the town at night, much the same way as you can in dungeons, because the whole point of them as escapism and everything else was not to think too much. I mean, your dungeons don't need a story. They can be better if there is a story. Although in most cases in site-based adventures, the story is simply a case of the background and what happens in the dungeon as you get towards the boss. You know, so they're quite simple stories. And you don't see much of this sort of gameplay these days, but a lot of the wilderness is often treated like a dungeon as well. In fact, in the early games you had what was known as the hex crawl, which is basically it's an open world sandbox of the world map, and basically you'd be a cartographer filling in the map hex by hex for everything that you find. You literally just point a direction and go, we're going that way. That would determine, and then that would, if there was anything in that hex, you'd have a chance to find it. Depending on the scale of the hex, you'd know. Otherwise it could be a random encounter for the terrain. So yeah, end up exploring mountains and deserts and all sorts of wilderness adventures just by going out and looking, which is kind of a forgotten part of role-playing games these days. Going out and exploring the wilderness and seeing what you can find. It was quite a staple back in the day. I mean, you get sort of some of that sort of feeling in like in the later games like of this, like Skyrim and Morrowind, because there's all sorts of stuff you can find by exploring the wilderness. Although it's a lot less guided than a simple hex crawl. Whereas back in the day where everything was grid-based maps, like the early Might and Magic games, for example, you had as much fun exploring the wilderness as you did the dungeons and the towns, because pretty much they were all mapped the same. The only difference was like the rules or the services that they provide. Or to think of an example, the difference between a wilderness and a dungeon was that quite often the wilderness would feature barriers in the form of trees, that looked like walls, but you could walk through them to find what was like in the next thing. The same with mountains, you could find hidden paths through mountains. I mean, that's kind of how they portrayed a forest. You couldn't see because the trees blocked you, but you could walk through the trees. So you never knew if in the next clearing, i.e. the next square, there was going to be something important. Lands of Law and that sort of also did something quite similar, where by treating the wilderness as a sort of dungeon that can be explored and mapped, as opposed to just places you can go as it is here. I mean, in Elder Scrolls Arena, the wilderness is basically, it's an expanse of land you can explore beyond every town. The actual map is all disconnected, as we've seen. So you can't actually walk from one town to the other. So there's not really anything to explore in that sort of regard. But you can still go out of town and explore and do the still go out of town, explore, find dungeons and do that sort of thing. It's a little less guided because it's not really map based. Then that was more to do with limitations of storage to save. That's the same reason you can't write notes down on the map, same as you can in towns. Plate helm, plate helm, plate helm. Daikatana we're never going to use. Yeah. Luckily it seems that we've not got any water in this level, so it's just a case of climbing and jumping and being annoying as opposed to anything else. Okay. Well, we can deal with that. Remember that loot pile was there? A Wakazashe. mean, in many ways, nowadays, the wilderness, especially in games, focus is on the story, and it's like the wilderness and the settings are just something to be passed through, often using some form of fast travel. And don't get me wrong, fast travel is pretty good if you have, once you've explored things. And of course, if you have the ability to fly and the ability to teleport, why wouldn't you want to use them? You want to be able to show off your power. But quite often you are missing a whole aspect of adventures, really, if all you really want to do is to skip past the travelling to wherever. And as you've seen, we've got kind of fast travel here to move between points, because we can't actually explore in between those points. I mean, Daggerfall would change that. Daggerfall allows you to explore between, but even though the area is smaller it turns out that the dots of what counts in the wilderness, and you'll see what I mean if I do that game, which I probably will, depending on how popular this series is. Especially since it's one of my favourites, even if it is quite a bit buggy. But basically, they used a similar grid-based idea, but instead of being like one spot, or one square was actually a huge amount of wilderness. So actually travelling between places. It takes a while with not a lot to explore, but sometimes you'll come across things in the wilderness. Of course, for most of the fetch quests and stuff like that, sometimes fast travel in that case is easier, just because of how awkward exploring is, because it is literally so vast and quite confusing as well, because it can seem for a long time that you're not actually making progress. Just because of how small the dots are, and I see ya. How small the squares are in the wilderness, and the amount of area that each covers, because it is huge. I mean, there's a YouTube video that shows the sizes of various worlds in terms of the area they cover that you can explore, and Daggerfall is massive. I think it's one of the biggest games ever, I think. Of course, it's easy to create huge maps when it's procedurally generated as opposed to handmade content. I mean, the key is usually to make sure that you've got enough content to keep the player engaged with your procedural generation. There's no point procedurally generating endless empty rooms. For example, and you see each of these modules, for example, they have different layouts, they have different themes. Some are rooms, some are corridors, some are water sewer mazes. Just imagine if this game was on Steam with DLC. I mean, I'm an advocate for DLC, as long as it's A, worth the money. I mean, looking at you, Horse Armour, probably one of the most famous abuses of DLC ever noted. Yeah, get them still do it. But yeah, if the DLC is worth the money and provides the content, then yeah, I mean, can you imagine new monsters? New monsters, additional modules for dungeons, more wilderness, you know, more towns, more set dungeons, expanding on the main quest or providing side quests, you know. The key is always to expand on the key features of the game that makes it great. Don't try and change a game. For example, here, key part of the game is that it's experience based. Sure, the skill-based version, skill-based abilities in Daggerfall are fun, and it's a great game because of it. And yeah, that did improve the formula, but for those who enjoyed the simplicity of an experience-based system, and don't get me wrong, there were quite a few who did and still do. You know, I mean, that's not what DLC... If you want to change a game or explore something that's radically different, then make a sequel. Because then everyone knows that it's different. Even then, you're still going to get people who are like, I mean, sure, Fallout 3, for example. Fallout 3 may be a good game, may not, but it's not the same as Fallout 1 and 2 and Tactics. And that was as much part of the mechanics, and the turn-based action was as much part of the game of Fallout as part of the Fallout franchise as the post-apocalyptic setting was. So I'm quite disappointed that I haven't actually played Fallout 3 for them, because, well, I haven't got round to it, and originally I wasn't that impressed with the fact that it got changed, because all that happened is that Fallout is essentially the Elder Scrolls in the post-apocalypse, which is okay if that's what you want, but it seemed more like it was a cash grab than anything else, buying an IP to lure the fans in, and that never goes down well with people who like the original system. I mean, in many cases it's like, okay, you have to compare the game to the expectations that were set up by the previous versions. Damn you! Where were we when we saved? Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. Do that bit again. I mean, I'm not saying Fallout 3 is bad and shouldn't have been done. I'm not saying... what I'm saying is, I mean, is that you can use the IP. You could a first person role-playing game set in the Fallout universe, for example, would still sell. It's still using the IP. I mean, because that's a change of genre. I mean, and why Bethesda were quite clear about the change of genre as they were doing it, it was still disappointing, because it meant that the previous genre had gone and been abandoned, as if turn-based strategy was a dying... Yeah, turn-based strategy was a dying thing that nobody wanted anymore, and it's like, that's not true. Anyway, I think let's have a look at how we're doing on the map. We've done this bit here. Got that bit down there to do. So I think we'll save it here and do another... Save it here and do another episode, because that'll be finished up. Then we can go back. Shouldn't take us too long. So yeah, this has been Vane doing Let's Play the Elder Scrolls Arena. If you like what you're seeing here, be sure to like, subscribe, share and comment. Please consider sponsoring me on Patreon, and until next time, goodbye.